up, guys, we are going to have Katie. Katie's joining us all the way from the UK. Katie's a rainbow mom and a baby loss activist, and she is going to share her story of loss with us today. Uh, Let me just get Katie's things on the screen so I can start sharing with you guys. Okay, I'm just gonna unmute Katie. Hi, Katie, can you hear me?
I can, Yanela, thank you. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay and see me? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to first of all start by saying a massive thank you to Yanela for all your love and encouragement. I think I've known you through Instagram on and off for about a year and a half, I think. Yeah, so I just want to say I love you, girl. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting me onto your platform. I'm really honored. I'm really very honored. So yeah, if I get into it. So yeah, as you know, I said, I'm actually based in London, in the UK. And yeah, I have been pregnant 3 times. Twice ended in a loss. And then the last time, by God's grace, I had my son. So it has been a long journey. I've gone through a lot in the last like 3.5 to 4 years. But yeah, God has really helped to heal the pain and the trauma in my heart. So yeah, I'm forever grateful for that. So yes, if I can get into my testimony, my story. So if I take us all back to the end of 2016, so by that point, me and my husband had been married for about 4 years. And so, yeah, like obviously, we've got a great marriage, and we just thought, you know what, like, let's just start trying for kids. So yeah, we started trying towards the end of that year, towards the end of 2016, and I got pregnant. I found out I was pregnant, I think beginning of December, and yeah, we were so happy, ecstatic. I was pregnant for the first time, so I didn't know what to expect. So everything was going well, and a lot of my friends around that time were pregnant as well in my church. So yeah, like we were sharing different things together. So yeah, we're just super excited. And I think my sister-in-law was also pregnant with me too, so we'd always share different tips and etc. And then so my first trimester went really well. I didn't really have morning sickness, etc. I did have a few scares, like I had a few spotting scares. So I did go to the hospital, but when they checked, they said everything's fine, it's normal. So yeah, just continued with, being pregnant. And so when I started my second trimester, so when I got to around 17 weeks, I remember I woke up, I was getting ready for work, and I felt really weird. Like I had like really bad cramping, like period pains. So yeah, at first I thought, oh, it's nothing, but my husband was like, oh, let's just go to the hospital just in case. So anyways, we went to the hospital, and there was a bit of a wait because it's like a wait, like an A&E for pregnant women, the early pregnancy unit. So that I think I waited about half an hour in that pain. So, but when they called my name, as soon as they called my name, I went to the nurse's cubicle, and then I just started to bleed everywhere on the floor. Like I was wearing jeans, and I just remember I remember feeling my jeans just soaked with blood, and it was just literally going everywhere on the floor. And then like I just thought, oh my gosh, what's going on? I was just numb. I was just in shock. So then they rushed me to the next cubicle and they said, oh, we need to call the doctor. So then me and my husband were literally praying. And yeah, I just remember thinking, oh, do you know what? God's got us. Like my friend who was pregnant at the time, she had a similar scare. So I thought, you know, yeah, like I'm going to have the same testimony she did. Because, yeah, she had a lot of bleeding and then her baby was fine. So I thought, yeah, that's my testimony. I was like, yeah, God's got us. Like, it's fine. Yeah, but when the doctor came and checked me, she was like, I'm really sorry, Mrs. Bonful. It looks like you're having a miscarriage. So I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't know much about miscarriage. My knowledge of miscarriage was very weak, you could say. So I just thought, okay, what does that mean? So she was just like, yeah, you're losing the baby. We can see there's things that, yeah, like, yeah, we shouldn't be seeing this at this stage. So yeah, I'm really sorry. It looks like you're having a miscarriage. And then I think they got a second opinion, and then that doctor also confirmed that, yeah, I'm afraid you're, you know, losing the baby. So I remember just crying. I just was inconsolable, and I was just crying and crying, and yeah, I just felt like, oh, yeah, like my world had ended, you could say. Because it's weird when you are pregnant, you kind of go into the future, so you start planning everything. And you know, the baby isn't even here yet, and yet you're thinking of, oh, I'm gonna dress you in these outfits, and then when when you go to nursery, I'm gonna be picking you up from school, and then you fast forward to when they get married, and you start. But when they say, you know, the baby is no longer, like, you're having a miscarriage, it's like everything died. Like the baby died, but also all of my hopes and dreams died with that baby. So yeah, I was just inconsolable, and I just remember I was just crying, and then my husband was trying to encourage me as well, but obviously he was also going through his grief too. So we were just both just very yeah, very, very sad. And then I remember asking, okay, so what happens now? Like, can I go home? And then the nurse was like, oh, okay, I'm really sorry, because you were in your trimester. Basically, the baby was not fully formed, but formed enough that you can't just go home. Like, you actually have to give birth to the baby now. So when she said that, I thought, what? Because obviously she's saying miscarriage, and I know that miscarriage and stillbirth are two different things. Like when you have a stillbirth, that's more or less when you have to do that. But she was just like, yeah, well, because you were at 17 weeks, which is a second trimester, like you have to, you know, basically the baby has to come out. And so I was, you know, first of all, trying to process the fact that I've now lost my child, and now I'm going to have to do this thing, that my body's going to have to do this. And it's like it's not ended, it's continuing. So I just thought, how on earth can I do this? So anyway, they wheeled me into another room, like I think it was another ward for women that are obviously going through loss. So I had my own cubicle, and yeah, I just remember I just felt really lonely and empty and just isolated. And, you know, see, my husband was with me, he was next to me, but yeah, I just felt so alone at that point. And then, yes, I think after an hour of me being in that room, my waters broke. So I thought it was the baby. So I remember just crying hysterically, but she was like, oh no, it's just your waters. So I was like, oh gosh, like it's still not over. So anyway, so I think they kept me in overnight, because they said because I went into labor naturally, they thought that maybe my body will go into natural labor. But she said, if nothing happens, they will have to induce you into labor. So the next day came, and then one of the doctors came and was like, and she was like, oh, Katie, has anyone checked? Did anyone scan you? And I said, no one scanned me. So they were like, oh, let's just scan you just in case, like maybe the baby's still alive. So they took me to another place to get scanned. And yeah, like my baby was just lifeless in my stomach. And when I had my 3-month scan, like, you know, about 3 weeks beforehand, my baby was doing somersaults in my stomach, you know, just moving and just happy. And when I just saw my baby just lifeless, just laying there, I just thought, wow, like I was just so heartbroken. It's like it broke me again, and just obviously seeing it visually. So then, yeah, I just remember it's like with each blow, I was kind of getting more retreated within myself. So yeah, so anyway, but my husband was there, he was encouraging me. He was just like, you know what, don't worry, God's got us. Went back to my room, my cubicle, and they said, okay, because nothing's happening, we're gonna have to induce you into labor. So then they gave me this medicine to induce labor, and then within a half an hour, like the contractions were so intense. yeah, I think it took about an hour for baby to come, but yeah, the contractions were so incredibly painful. And I remember screaming, I was like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And my husband was like, you're doing it. He was holding my hand and he was like, Katie, you are doing it. And I remember having the gas in there, so I was like half drugged up from the drugs and half obviously grieving and, you know, sad that my baby's like, no, you know, basically dead. And but also I was in so much pain, I just wanted the pain to stop, so I just wanted the baby to just come. And then I remember I pushed and then the baby came and like there was just silence that filled the whole room. And I just obviously, you know, when you watch the movies, when, you know, women are in labor, like the mother goes into labor and then you hear the baby crying. So I remember with me, like like obviously the baby was silent and it was just my cries that you could hear. I was just crying hysterically. And yeah, I just remember thinking like I failed as a woman. I remember feeling like I'd failed as a mother. Like my body couldn't hold this child, and I felt like, oh, it's my fault. And yeah, it's like I just couldn't be consoled, even though I was hearing, yeah, God's in control. You know, like we don't know why this happened. You know, I guess this was God's will. So obviously, you don't want to hear those things at that point. But all I heard was the negativity and obviously like myself saying that, you know, you failed. So yeah, after that, then the placenta came out as well. And then like, yeah, thank God, then I was in no more pain. So I just remember just, yeah, being on the bed, just in my thoughts. And then the nurse came and she said, oh, Katie, yeah, like, would you like to see the baby? So I thought, wow, okay, I didn't even think that far. I just thought, okay, the baby's gone. But she was like, yeah, we've wrapped baby up in like these little clothes and put him in a basket. So she's like, yeah, we can bring him to you. So I was like, wow, okay. So I didn't say anything. So my husband was just like, yeah, we want to see the baby. So they brought baby to us. And instantly I just was like, wow, like you are just so gorgeous. And I couldn't fathom the fact that at 17 weeks, my baby was already practically formed enough, you know? And like, it was just like his outer layer that you couldn't see. So, sorry, the skin layer that you couldn't see. But yeah, everything was formed, like his eyes, which were shut. Like you could see his ears, you could see his ribs, you could see his legs, his fingers, like he even had nails. And then when we checked him, I say he because when we checked his privates, like you could tell that baby was definitely a boy. We're like, yeah, he was a boy. So yeah, it was just so surreal and like so heartbreaking at the same time. But I just thought I just wanted that moment to last forever because I just wanted to be with my child. And I remember just like even smelling my baby and just, you know, just trying to hold him as close as I could. And yeah, it was just so sad. It was so sad. And I just thought, wow, like I've never felt a pain like this. I've never experienced pain. Yeah, like I've never experienced pain like this. And I just thought, wow, so this is what it feels to have a broken heart. Yeah, because me and my husband, like my husband, my first boyfriend, so I didn't go through all that like heartbreak and stuff. It's different when you know pick up with a partner. Like when I was my first child, I was just like, this is what it feels like to have a broken heart. Like my heart felt like it was in pieces all on the floor and I just was empty. So yeah, that happened. And then I remember the bereavement nurse at the hospital came to speak to me, and that was really helpful just to think about things like work. Like she was like, you know, you're gonna have to take time off work. I wasn't even thinking about work. I just thought I'll go back to work the next day. But she's like, no, this is major. Like you need, you need time for yourself. Like you need to just, you know, just time to chill and just to take it all in. So yeah, so that was really helpful that she spoke to me about the baby's funeral arrangements as well. So yeah, just different things that I hadn't even thought of. So yeah, so when we got discharged from the hospital, I remember yeah, I just remember just looking out and seeing everyone and just seeing that life had carried on. So I remember seeing families. I remember seeing, I think even in the lift on the way down, like, I saw a woman with her baby, like a newborn baby. And like, I just was like, I was jealous. I was just like, oh, I don't have that. And yeah, it just felt like that's what I came to the hospital pregnant. I'm leaving with nothing. So yeah, I just remember just seeing everyone just going about their business, going to the car park, getting their car. And I just thought in my head, I was just screaming, like, you know, I was just like, stop, like, something major's happened, but obviously life just goes on. It's like God was saying, like, life just goes on. And yeah, like, obviously it's like a journey that I've got to go through. Like, my healing journey has got to commence. So yeah, even when when I got home and then I saw my family, and yeah, like, almost so hard for me. It's like made me a card. My little niece, who was 6 at the time, she's made me a card with the fact that she knew I was pregnant. And yeah, she just hugged me, and it was just little things like that. I was just like, I just needed my family around me. And then I remember going to sleep. The next day I woke up, and for a split second I thought, was that a dream? And then as I got up, like, everything came back. And I remember my belly was so sore from, being in labor. And I was in so much pain. I couldn't even get out of bed. My husband had to assist me out of the bed because I was in so much pain still. And so literally it all came like flooding back. And yeah, I was a mess. I was just a mess. Yeah, so then in the weeks and months that followed, you could say that I kind of retreated into myself. I guess I just questioned everything. I questioned who I was. I questioned my purpose. I questioned the fact that I'm a woman, but I've not been able to, I got pregnant, but I wasn't able to bring the baby to full term. So that was a challenge for me. My sister-in-law was obviously still pregnant. So it was just all these reminders that I guess I didn't need at the time. But obviously life is life, isn't it? You can't shield yourself from the world. So so then I remember I had about a month off work, and then I had to go back into work for like a occupational health like review, so that they could just check up on me and see how I was doing. And so the woman spoke to me, was just like, "Oh, have you considered counselling?" And I said no. And because obviously I'm a Christian, like in our church, like if you've got issues, you speak to the pastor. So we didn't really have like a counselling thing set up. So and plus obviously I think in the Black community I don't really think counselling is that much of a thing as well, so I didn't really consider it. So she was like, "Oh, have you considered counselling?" And I was like, no, I haven't, but she was like, "Yeah, why don't you give it a go?" So I went, and I'm so happy I did, because I was able to speak to a complete stranger that doesn't know me, that's not able to prejudge me, so I could say the craziest of things. And I just felt like I was being heard. And I felt like all that trauma that I'd built up inside my heart and inside of myself was coming out. And I just remember, like, the first session I cried, second session I cried. And with each session, the tears were less and less. And so that was a massive help. And I remember getting into exercise as well, because I put on, quite a bit of weight from being pregnant. So I just wanted to, like, because every time I looked in the mirror, I just was reminded of the baby that I've lost. Like my stomach was still big, and, just everything was happening as if I was supposed to have a baby now. So yes, I remember just going, throwing myself into exercise. So that was another thing that helped me on my healing journey. And then also, obviously, my faith. I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian for about 16 years, and I can say that nothing has tested me more than losing my children. And yeah, up to that point, I hadn't really gone through anything major that had tested me to make me think, oh, like, is God real, kind of thing. But when this happened, I didn't question that God is real, but it made me, like, I knew that God is real, but I guess I realized that life is hard. Life is so hard, but God is still good. And I think God was able to make me see the difference between the two. So so it's like the opposite happened. I just feel like the devil was throwing this in my path to kind of knock me off and to, like, go backslide, but it made me do the opposite. It made me trust God even more, because I was just like, "God, you know what? You know why this happened. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I trust you." And I didn't have anything, but I just was like, "God, I trust you." So that's what I chose to do. And yeah, like, my church family were amazing. My mum, my sister, just everyone that was around me in my immediate circle, and my husband, obviously, they really helped to build me back up. So I would say, like, in the months that followed, I got stronger again mentally. I guess, like, I acknowledged what had happened, and I realized that, it was outside your control. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault, because I kept saying, "This is your fault. You must have done something to cause this miscarriage. Like, you must have eaten something, or maybe you did too much exercise, or I don't know, just you must have done something." But yeah, like when after we lost the first baby, we had an autopsy. So with the hospital, they did an autopsy on the baby, and then the professor confirmed that it was nothing that I did. It's just one of those things. And yeah, like, not basically, baby was healthy, and he was just like, I'm confident that next time round it'll be successful. So when he said those words, like, it wasn't my fault, I was like, wow, okay, I needed to hear that. And yeah, like I went, like I started to build myself up again. So I lost my first child on the 9th of March 2017, and then towards the end of 2018, I think I realized that, okay, maybe I'm okay, let's try again. So we tried again, I got pregnant, and again, like, everything followed the same like the same pattern. Like, I was fine in my pregnancy, everything was going well. And then when I reached 17 weeks, when I reached 17 weeks, I was like, let me just get past this date. And everything was fine. And even the hospital, they were taking care of me better. Like, they were having me come in for more scans, etc. So I went in for scans. Even the day I reached 17 weeks, they scanned me and they were like, everything's fine. So then when I got to 17 weeks, 5 days now, like, I remember waking up and I felt really weird, but it wasn't like the first time round. So I just thought, oh, maybe it's because I'm bigger now, like maybe baby's grown, so that's why I'm feeling like this. So I remember I went to work the whole day. I finished work and I met up with my husband, and then I just thought, okay, let me speak to my midwife. And then my midwife was like, oh, maybe you should go to the hospital just to get it checked out. So I remember going to the hospital, and then as soon as I got to the hospital, they asked me to do like a urine sample. So then when I checked, I saw that I was bleeding. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, not again, not again. And I remember the feelings that I had experienced from the first miscarriage just came flooding back, and I was inconsolable. I was just in tears. And I went to my husband. I was like, husband, I was like, hubby, look. And then he grabbed a nurse, and then they checked me. And I think it was even like in the evening. So they had actually closed down everything. So they got some laptop, and then they just tried to make it work so that they could scan me. And then when they scanned me, they saw that the baby was still alive. So the baby was still alive. And they just saw that the fluid around the baby had started to come out because my cervix had started to open. So my cervix was like that. And the fluid around the baby was starting to come out. And so she was like, that's the pressure, that's the feeling that you're feeling. So she was like, if the bleeding stops, then maybe we can do an emergency stitch. But if it doesn't stop, then I'm afraid that it looks like you're going to have another miscarriage. So I was like, no. So I was like praying, we're all praying. My husband was laying hands on my stomach, and my mum was also, she'd come to the hospital by that point, and we were all just praying. And it just felt like the more they prayed, the more pain I felt. And then, so they just said, okay, it looks like you're actually having another miscarriage. So then they wheeled me into another cubicle, another room. And then my mum, she's the one who noticed that. She said, this is the same room you was in last year. And the date was also the same. So the date was the 9th of March 2018, and I lost my first baby on the 9th of March 2017. So she was like, oh, I'm really sorry, but there's no other rooms available. So we just had to, just get on with it, really. So so basically I went into labor from about 9 p.m. and I remember having contractions the whole night until about 6 a.m. And then then the baby came out. And then after a few, maybe half an hour, the placenta came out. And I remember when I finished pushing and stuff, and the placenta came out. I remember I didn't feel okay. So then they checked me, and they realized that some of the placenta had still stayed inside of my womb. And so they just rushed me to the theatre. And they said, because basically, if the placenta is still inside, it could cause infection and cause all sorts of complications down there. So they just rushed me straight away. And so obviously that was quite scary for my mum and my husband. So we have my mum and my husband. See, first I've lost our second baby, and now my life is at risk. So anyway, but thank God they managed to take everything out, and they gave me a blood transfusion as well afterwards, because I'd lost so much blood. And I just remember when I'd come round, I just felt so numb. Obviously I'd made all that progress that, for that last 6 months, or actually, it was 9 months at that point. And then I just felt like I'm back to square one. So I just remember thinking, like, what is wrong with me? Like, what on earth is going on? And I remember thinking, God, like, why is this happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? Why do all my friends have their babies healthy, and yet I can't do this? Like, I remember looking at my husband, I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't say this to him, but in my head, I thought to myself, I'm so sorry, husband, I can't give you children. And I just remember thinking, like, I'd rather go for adoption, like, than to lose another child. And as soon as I said that, my husband and my mum were like, no, don't think that way. That's the devil lying to you, you know. And then he was just like, yeah, God is in control. God is with us. Like, don't give up hope. So yeah, when obviously I needed to hear that at that point, but obviously I was just very inconsolable. I was very down, and yeah. So again, afterwards, the nurses said to me, "Would you like to see your baby?" And so I said, okay, yeah, I want to see. And as soon as they brought him, and I say him again because it was another boy, as soon as they brought him to us, I just was like, he looked exactly like the first baby. And my heart was just so overwhelmed with just immense sadness, just grief, just that I've lost another one. And again, I just remember examining his whole body, and yeah, I was just distraught. And I remember even in the hospital room, I was holding my child and I was singing, because I was like, I'm never going to get to sing to my child, like even like nursery rhymes or anything. So I just remember singing a song, just rocking back and forth on the hospital bed. And yeah, I just felt like my world had ended, and I just thought, what's the point, you know? So again, yeah, the weeks that followed, like, I think this time around, I guess the healing process the second time around was a lot quicker. I guess obviously I'd gone through it the first time. So straight away, when we left the hospital, I was like, I need to have counselling. So I requested that, I set that up. And then again, I was like, I need to exercise. I need to, I need to fill myself up with the word of God. And I just need to get back to, feeling like myself again, because I just felt lost. And obviously it was hard. I just felt like I was battling against myself. It was like I felt like I was just doing this to myself, and like I was trying to make progress, but then at the same time I guess I didn't need to grieve. So I think one thing that helped me with my healing journey was allowing me to grieve and allowing the emotions out. So I remember vividly there was a period of about 2 weeks where every day I just cried. I just literally let the tears out, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I remember my mum she stayed with us for that week or so. And so literally I would just, I just remember wandering around the house just so depressed and so low. And like, I'll just go to mum and just give her a hug. And then mum would just be like, it's okay, like, it's going to be okay. And I was just like, when is it going to be okay? I just thought, like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to be happy again. But she was just like, yeah, just, it's okay. Like, God is with us. Like, God has got us. So yeah, and then after that 2 weeks, I felt a lot better. And as I said, I threw myself into exercise. I did the counselling, which was, so it was just, it was so good. And I went back to work even earlier. I think the first time I lost the first baby, I was off for about 3 months. And then the second time around, I came back to work after 3 weeks. And I remember my work colleague asked me, she was like, Katie, what are you doing here? And I said to her, I was like, I've got two choices. I can either stay down or I can get back up. And I'm like, I'm choosing to get back up. I need to get back into life. And I need to just take back what the devil's trying to take from me. So she was just like, wow, okay. So I was trying to do all these things, and it was helping. And but definitely what helped was not allowing myself to not feel. Because I think usually especially I think in the African community, when a baby is lost, it's so easy to be like, I'll just try again. But you actually need time for yourself. You need that time. You need that break to process what's happening. Allow your body to go through all the stages of grief. And you just need to allow yourself to feel, and that way you can heal from it. So so that the second time around, I really tried to do that. And so then I think so I'm getting all my dates mixed up, but so I think after about 2 months, so that takes me up to about May, my husband, he was like, should we try again? And I was just like, no. I literally had so much fear. I just couldn't fathom the fact of getting pregnant and then losing another one. So I just had so much fear. But on about 3 occasions, I went to church and I received a word in that church service. And each time it was God saying, basically, I've heard your cries and I'm going to show the world that I reign, and the world will know that it's me that has blessed you. So basically just don't let fear consume you. You need to step out in faith. So I was like, wow, okay, God is really helping me to move on, to basically to be like, okay, it's time to go to the next level again, to the next stage. So but even that was scary, and it took another few months, and that's when I was like, okay, I just let go. I just thought, do you know what, if I hold on, I'm never gonna get past this. So I just had to let go and be like, okay, let's just see what happens. And yeah. But actually, so if I could rewind, when we had the second baby that died, we actually had an autopsy again, and then the professor said that this time round there was a lot of inflammation around the baby, and basically baby got really sick. So baby was healthy initially, but he was like, baby got really sick, and that basically had caught some sort of infection that made the baby sick. And then he said that if the baby had gone to full term, he wouldn't have lived long anyway, and basically that my life was at risk. He said I could have died if I had gone to full term. So when I heard all that, I just thought, wow, like God is with us in this. So and even actually, sorry, so I'm leaving stuff out, but just so much happened, so it's just hard to kind of keep it all in. So when I was in the hospital with my second son, we actually named him Shiloh. And then my husband's mum, she texted me, and she didn't know that we'd named him Shiloh, but she texted me. She was like, I remember the story of Hannah. So I remember the next day I went home and I was reading the story of Hannah. And obviously Hannah in the Bible, she was barren, she couldn't have kids, and she craved a male child. So it said that every day in that scripture, it says that every day Hannah went to Shiloh to pray. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like we've named our son Shiloh, which means a place of peace. And obviously now I'm reading the scripture and it says like Hannah went to the place of peace. So Hannah went to Shiloh to pray. And it says that about 8 or 9 times. So when I saw that, I called my husband, I was like, you know what, God is really in this with us. And it's not a coincidence that we named our son Shiloh. And now I'm reading this scripture, and yeah, basically it was just like, yeah, I just knew that it wasn't, obviously the enemy was attacking our family, but I just knew that God had a bigger purpose. So yeah, so anyway, so around August time, we decided to try again, and then I found out that I was pregnant. And then so as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I contacted that same professor because he has a specialist clinic for mums that have lost babies. And then he said, yeah, I'll be a perfect candidate for a stitch. So I actually had a cervical stitch put in at 10 weeks to keep my cervix closed. And then they said that every week I'll have weekly scans, just to make sure that everything's fine with the baby, etc. So yeah, so I remember at around 17 weeks, which is when I was losing the babies, yeah, everything was fine then. And then the week after, I remember they were saying that my cervix lymph had dropped. So they were kind of concerned, and they said that I basically have to limit my movements. So she was like, can you be on bed rest? So yeah, so I had to be on bed rest for the last 5 months of my pregnancy. I was practically at home. I worked from home. So I remember I'd work and I had a desk underneath my office desk, and I would just literally raise my legs up, and I did that for a good 5-6 months, and it was tough. I couldn't be on my feet for too long, and I was just so paranoid. I just remember feeling like any moment now this baby's gonna fall out. So I was just super paranoid in my pregnancy. Every day I'd wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm still pregnant, and I'll just be like, God, please see me through. And then it got to a point where I just thought, you know what, instead of me being so scared, let me start praising God in advance for things that haven't even happened yet. So I remember I started writing things down, all my medical appointments, I started writing it down all the way up until when I was full term at 37 weeks. And even though I was 20 weeks, I started saying to God, thank you in advance for getting me to 37 weeks. And I really thought that was a turning point. Instead of being so fearful, I started rejoicing in God and thanking God in advance before things had even happened. And yeah, I really thought that that helped me to, you know, get to get further on in my pregnancy. And yeah, like thank God, like when I got to 37 weeks, they took the stitch out. And and then the week after, my son came, my third born son Maximus. He came, my rainbow baby came. And like even when I was in labor with him, I couldn't even believe it, because I just thought, wow, okay, I you know, I need to hear him cry. I just remember, because I really was adamant that I wanted a natural birth, because I wanted, obviously the first two babies, when I had when I'd gone into labor, yeah, like obviously that wasn't a nice experience. So I just thought I need to have a natural labor where I can hear my baby crying. So when I heard his cries after, you know, that final push, I was so happy. And that joy, that immense feeling just rushed over me. And I just thought, wow, I was like, God, you are so good. And even my midwife was a Christian, so she prayed over my child, my son. And I just felt the presence of God in that hospital room was so thick. And I was like, I did it, and I was so happy. And yeah, so I just like it was, yeah. So I mean, like on my Instagram, like I started sharing little things. Even when I was pregnant, I started sharing about baby loss, because like in the UK, I think it's getting better, the whole like, you know, baby loss because it's quite a taboo topic, like miscarriage and loss. It's not something that you hear all the time. So it wasn't even until I had my own losses that people in my own life were like, oh, I had a miscarriage. So that's when you tend to hear about it, but like when when you've gone through it yourself, and then someone asks, like opens up to you and it's like, oh, I actually had a miscarriage. I had 2 miscarriages. And you're just like, wow, so you know, why don't you, or I don't know, it's like I just feel like it needs to be spoken about more, and it needs to be, you know, like acceptable to open up about these things, because in life we all go through different traumatic events, and it's by speaking about it that's how you get healing. So yeah, so that's why I decided about a year and a half ago to start talking about it on my Instagram. And like the feedback I've had has been so overwhelming. Just people in my life, they had a loss last week, and she's basically she doesn't know what to do with herself. Like she's so low, and she feels so depressed. But she said that, but me speaking about it has really helped her in her healing journey. So yeah, just different things like that. I guess have helped me, and obviously I speak about my journey of becoming a mum. It helps me in my healing journey as well, because it's obviously as we've heard, like it's an ongoing thing. It's not something that you can just switch off and then that's that. It's something that you have to work on every day, and yeah, it's a process. So yeah, I feel like baby loss in the UK, like it's getting better. It's not quite there yet, but it is getting better. And I think that community was very silent on this topic. And when I started sharing, and I got DMs from people in Nigeria, this lady said that she's had a miscarriage, and yet her family are pressuring her to have another child. They want her to just get back on it and start trying again. But she's just, she's healing, she's grieving. So she was just like, how does she speak to her family about that? And it's really sad that instead of being able to have that space of, you need to be okay, because if we're not okay, how can we function? How can our offspring function, and the people around us? So yeah, like we really need to guard our hearts, guard our minds, and protect ourselves. And we do that by, so I'm just there's questions that Yanela sent me from before, so I'll probably answer that. So what has been your biggest source of strength? I mean, for that, I would say obviously my faith in God. Without God, I don't know where I'd be, because there was many times, like obviously I went through depressive episodes. Like I was depressed, I was low. I would say I had suicidal thoughts to a degree, in that it would pop into my head, but it's not something I would want to act on. But obviously that's still thoughts that I had, because I was that low. So and I guess that's all it takes. Like when you hear someone that's committed suicide, it's that split second thing, isn't it, that in that moment they felt that there was no way out. That's the only thing that they resorted to end the pain. So I'd say, yeah, without God, like I don't know where I'd be. So yeah, God, his word, my church family, yeah, such a massive strength. And then obviously my immediate family, my husband, my mom, my sister, and my close friends. And yeah, and I guess, yeah, like I said, just allowing myself to be open. Yeah, I think that's helped me with my healing journey, really. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you everyone.
And thank you for these pictures, because yeah, people can find, um, people don't know what a trauma it is to actually lose a child in
Yeah,
pregnancy, because it's such a taboo in our society that um, we don't give women space or time to actually grieve through these things, because
exactly.
there's a stigma against it. So the more we don't talk about it, the more people don't realize that it's actually a trauma and it's pain that needs healing on its own.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you for sharing your babies with us today. And
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm just gonna check if anyone has any comments or questions for Katie. Because I have one, but like I said, I don't want to be a dictator. So if you have a question for Katie, please feel free. Uh, okay, Esther says, God is so good. Thank you for sharing, Katie. And Daya says, your story is so beautiful. How did you find a counselor?
Yeah, that was actually through work. The council was through work. The council, I think they've got organisations in the UK. I think, I forgot. I think it's, oh, sorry, the name has escaped me. But they do have bereavement counsellors to people that have lost babies. I did try to call that number. So the lady at the hospital, the bereavement nurse at the hospital, she did give me that number. And every time I called, I just couldn't get through. So it was when I went to work and I spoke to the occupational health nurse. She explained that we've got like a counselling service attached to my workplace and it's totally free. So I didn't even have to pay for it. So, because I think usually it would be about £40 an hour. But thank God I didn't have to pay for it. So yes, it was through work. It was actually through work, it was so handy. So both times I used the same service and they find one in your area, so that way I didn't have to travel far. And so there was two options. You could either do a telephone counselling session or you could do like a face-to-face one. So I just thought I went for the face-to-face because yeah, I just thought it would be better. So yeah, so that's how.
And Amanda says, thank you for sharing, Katie. I somehow can relate because she also has had 2 miscarriages. So I
Okay, well,
think,
sorry, Amanda. I'm so sorry for your loss. And yeah, I'll be praying for you. And yeah, I'm sending love and light to you. Oh,
I think us women need to have these spaces,
yeah.
just so people can relate. Because I too can relate to your story. I've been pregnant 3 times and still
Mm,
have no baby. All of my pregnancies have resulted in a death, basically. So I
yeah.
had to grieve 3 babies in 3 consecutive years. So I can relate so much to your pain and I can relate so much to your story. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Katie, for sharing with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you for all your comments as well. So encouraging. Thank you.
And before you leave us, Katie, a viewer has, oh, we seem to have 2 comments right now. A viewer says, Katie, may you and your husband continue to grow and remain blessed.
Oh, thank you.
And Usbongile says, thank you for sharing your story. I experienced stillbirth at 8 months and I have been having difficulties with restoring my relationship with God. How did you overcome the questioning of why God and finding your way back to God?
Um, oh, I'm so sorry, sis, for your loss. Yeah, it's just every time I hear when someone has lost a child, it just, yeah, it hurts, because obviously I know every loss is different, but I definitely can empathize with you. So yeah, I'm very devastated for you, and I'm really sorry. So I mean, personally, don't get me wrong, like I had my moments, like my faith was so challenged. But the one thing that gave me comfort was knowing that my babies are in a different place, they're in a better place, and that they're in heaven. So it's like, if I'm questioning God, then I'm questioning the fact that my babies are in heaven. And that gave that, so knowing that my babies are now in heaven with God, and they're either they're not hurting, they're, you know, they're not in this world which is full of so much hate and so much evil, that gave me such peace and such comfort. And yeah, so I mean, yeah, so that in itself, that helped me. um yeah, I just thought, I just, to be honest, it's like, without God, like, where would I be even? You know, it's God that wakes me up every day. Like, tomorrow's not promised to anyone. And I would say, like, you know, it's God that blessed me in the first place with my sons, the ones that passed. So, like, I can't even question him. So yeah, so yeah, it's a hard one. It's so tricky, but I just, the more I leaned on God, the more strength I felt. And I'm just like, that's not me. Because when I left God out, that's the worst I felt. Does that make sense? So the more I leaned on God's word, the more I would, you know, listen to praise and worship, and the more I'd go to church, and just, you know, surround myself with more of God. It was God that gave me that peace. God is the one that gave me that peace. And you know why I shared that story about Shiloh, the name Shiloh. The first baby, we named him Jorim. So in the hospital room, he was like, you know, we need to name our babies. So with the first baby, we named him Jorim, which means the Lord is exalted, because we wanted to show that as Christians, we don't just trust God in the good times, but we trust God in the bad times. And then I feel like that whole year, so the whole of 2017, God taught me how to praise him in my pain. And it was like a theme for that whole year. And then again, when, you know, we named our second boy Shiloh, which means a place of peace. So that name is so it was so fitting, because obviously my boy now, he's in heaven, he's got peace, but I was like, I need peace. My husband needs peace. The people around me need peace. So again, 2018, that whole year, God showed me and gave me a peace. He gave me an inner peace that can only come from him. So yeah, like, God just, he just brought me closer to him. So sis, all I can say is that you just need to, as hard as it is, you just need to trust God. And you need to, if you find just one scripture, like, just find one scripture that you can meditate on, and let it be your comfort and your guide, because, you know, God's word is alive. It's not like, the Bible is not dead. Like, the word of God is alive. So I'm not sure if you're of faith, but you know, like, God is, yeah, God sees, and God, the Bible says that God collects all of our tears in a bottle. So every time you cry, God, he's collecting it in his bottle, and he's, you know, surrounding you with his love and his grace and his strength. So although you know, as humans, we go by feelings, isn't it? You might not feel it, but in time, I'm sure you will. Like I say, is that you will, like, you know, you're not okay now, but you will be okay. There will be an end to all of this pain. Not that, you know, there is an end to grief per se, but that, like, raw pain. Because it's weird, like, even obviously I'm here now talking to all of you amazing people, and then in preparation for today, like, I was looking back at my old pictures and of me in the hospital, and I just thought to myself, like, I can't actually remember that pain that I, you know, in the hospital when I was holding my sons, and I said that my heart was broken into many pieces. I feel like God has taken that pain away, and literally, it's that's the thing. It's only God that can do that. If I take God out of the equation, then I'll probably be depressed. I'll probably have even more suicidal thoughts. So I hope I'm making some sort of sense. So yeah, literally, God is so good. And yeah, when I saw that picture of me in the hospital, I just thought, wow, God has brought me such a long way. And yeah, that raw pain that I used to carry every day, has every day from that moment on, it has got easier. it's got easier. And so now I try to even flip it, and I try to celebrate my boys. So when it's their birthday, like I think of them, and yeah, like my twins, I think of them every day. Like I speak to them every day. Like I'm just like, hi boys. My mum and my sister are here actually in the Zoom call. They don't even know that I do that, but I try to include them as much as I can. And yeah, like I acknowledge them. If I didn't have my two boys first, then I wouldn't have my rainbow baby now, Maximus. So sis, it's hard, but trust me, God is with you. God is with you. And when your arms are weak and heavy, he will lift you up and raise you up. So yeah, it will get easier. It will get easier. So yeah, I'm sending you lots of love. Yeah, so I hope I answered that question.
Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you so much.